In the beginning, God made everything perfect. The very first humans got to enjoy unrestricted access to God. They also had the Garden of Eden, a perfect home. But Adam and Eve chose to do one thing that would disobey God's law. They chose sin over their relationship with God, and they drove a divide between God and humans, being banished from their perfect home. As the years went by, people only got worse. They disobeyed God not only when temptation came, when they were feeling weak. They disobeyed God at all times, choosing sin and abandoning any relationship with God. And God saw that the wickedness of man was great in the earth, and that every imagination of the thoughts of his heart was only evil continually. Sin was everywhere and in every one. The only way to make God's world perfect again was to destroy all humans. But Noah found grace in the eyes of the Lord. One man amongst the whole world remained faithful. The Bible describes him as perfect, but he was far from it. He still sinned. In this case, perfect is describing someone who is spiritually mature. Noah knew he sinned, and he came to God and asked for forgiveness, and then continued to faithfully serve God. It can be easy to do what's right, to be kind, to be patient, to be generous when others around you are doing those things, when you have examples in friends, in parents, and teachers. Noah had no one. He was the example for his family. He was the one serving God, while everyone else served their own way. God didn't choose Noah because he was a great architect or a great boat builder. God chose Noah because he was already faithfully following his instructions. When we are faithful in little things, we are often trusted with more important things. And God had an important task for Noah. God was going to judge the world and destroy all living things from the face of the earth. But Noah, his family, some of the animals, and anyone else who was willing to go God's way would be spared from the destruction. God gave Noah specific instructions to build a very large boat. It would have to have enough space to hold Noah and his family, as well as the animals, as well as the food they would need to survive the flood. It had not rained on the earth at this time. People probably asked Noah why he was building a boat. Normally you would build it by the ocean or perhaps a large lake, but Noah was building it and told them he was preparing for rain. They probably thought Noah was foolish. They probably told him he was foolish. But Noah continued to build. He trusted God's word over what people said to him. And Noah was 600 years old when the flood of waters was upon the earth. And Noah went in, and his sons, and his wife, and his sons' wives with him, into the ark, because of the waters of the flood, of clean beasts, and of beasts that are not clean, of fowls, and of everything that creepeth upon the earth. There went in 2 and 2 unto Noah into the ark, the male and the female, as God had commanded Noah. Those are a lot of animals. It might be hard to imagine that all those animals could sit on an ark, on a big boat, and survive a flood for a year. But we often think of the elephants, the giraffes, rhinoceroses. But there are also a lot of smaller animals. Frogs, bumblebees, mice, raccoons. There are a lot of animals that don't take up a lot of space. Some people have discovered that from the measurements God gave, it was entirely possible for enough animals to board the ark with the people and the food and survive the flood to become all the animals that we see today. And the flood was 40 days upon the earth, and the waters increased and bare up the ark, and it was lifted up above the earth. And the waters prevailed, and were increased greatly upon the earth, and the ark went upon the face of the waters. and the waters prevailed exceedingly upon the earth, and all the high hills that were under the whole earth were covered. Verse 21, and all flesh died that moved upon the earth, both of fowl and of cattle, and of beast, and of every creeping thing that creepeth upon the earth, and every man. The flood came, and God judged the world. But Noah and his family were safe on the ark, despite the water, the winds, the waves, the rain pounding around them. They were safe through those 40 days and 40 nights. God had preserved them with his perfect plan. Finally, when the rain stopped and the waters started to drain again, the ark came to rest on the mountains of Ararat, and Noah had built a window according to God's instructions, but it was still difficult to see if it was safe to leave. So Noah sent out a raven and a dove from the ark. But the raven did not return. The dove did return, and Noah brought it in to wait another 7 days. After that time he sent it out again, and this time it returned with an olive branch in its beak. After 7 days, Noah let the dove out again, and it never returned, finding a place to rest and eat and live. Noah and his family probably wondered if it was time for them to leave the ark too, but they waited on God's instruction as they had before. And in the 2nd month, on the 27th day of the month, was the earth dried. And God spake unto Noah, saying, Go forth of the ark, thou, and thy wife, and thy sons' wives with thee. Bring forth with thee every living thing that is with thee, of all flesh, both of fowl and of cattle, and of every creeping thing that creepeth upon the earth, that they may breed abundantly in the earth, and be fruitful and multiply upon the earth. So Noah and his family and all the animals were spared, and finally left the ark. Because of Noah's obedience to God's instructions, they survived the flood. God spared them from the judgment, and brought them through unscathed. But that's not all. God also made a promise to never again destroy the earth in a flood. And God said, This is the token of the covenant which I make between me and you and every living creature that is with you for perpetual generations. I do set my bow in the cloud, and it shall be for a token of a covenant between me and the earth. And it shall come to pass, when I bring a cloud over the earth, that the bow shall be seen in the cloud, and I will remember my covenant which is between me and you and every living creature of all flesh, and the waters shall no more become a flood to destroy all flesh. There are still floods today, but never again will a flood cover the entire earth as it did back then. And God promised, with the bow in the sky as a sign, that he will never again bring the destruction by flood to this earth. When the clouds gather and the rains pour down, we can see the rainbow and remember God's promise to show mercy.